All right. Thank you for staying in your seats. I hope you enjoyed the little social breakout. But here we are for our next piece of programming, Diverse Leaders, Diverse Hotels, the Leading GMs of the World. A panel with some general managers who are at the forefront of the hospitality industry's push towards a more sustainable and equitable future. We are so lucky to have this panel moderated by Mr. Tony Capuano, CEO and President of Marriott International and Hotel School Class of 1987. Joining him on stage will be our amazing panelists, Bernd Pichler, GM of the One Hotel New York City, Yvette Thomas Henry, Regional Vice President and General Manager of the Four Seasons Nevis, and Matthew Felix, the General Manager of the JW Marriott Washington D.C. Each of these individuals have managed hotel operations in destinations across the globe, and we are so excited to hear their own distinct ways for moving towards our united goal. So please, with that being said, let's welcome our amazing panel.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Good morning.
Morning.
Good morning.
Welcome. It's nice to see all 7 of you got up early in the morning. Before we start, I just want to say congratulations to the students, the HEC team. We just flew up this morning, but we have heard rave reviews over the last couple days, so congratulations to the whole team. I want to welcome my panelists. This is a unique opportunity for me. Normally I have to answer questions rather than ask questions. This is going to be a terrific panel. We did some prep work. It is, to state the obvious, a complex operating environment around the world today. Sets of challenges and riddles that our operators have to solve every day that they probably never anticipated when they got into this business. So I think it's going to be a rich and robust discussion. We'll get started. I'm going to keep an eye on the clock. If we're lucky, we will hopefully be able to take a couple audience questions as well. So I should also, of course, point out that while Matt works with us at the JW Marriott in Washington, all of our panelists have a rich Ritz-Carlton pedigree, and I'm quite proud that they all spent a little bit of time with us. So let's get started. First and foremost, as all of you know, hospitality is a people business. Our employees at Marriott, our associates, are the key to delivering great service, no matter the brand. The pandemic created all sorts of significant challenges for our industry and our associates as business was falling, but also just as challenging as business started to recover, to start from a dead stop and ramp back up those operations. Those complexities have been exacerbated by the fact that prior to the pandemic, the travel and tourism sector largely was viewed by the employment base as a set of safe harbor industries. And understandably, that confidence has been shaken. I know at Marriott, we've seen applicant volume higher than it was in a pre-pandemic environment. Many of those applicants show up enthusiastic, ear-to-ear smiles, having never spent 1 minute working in our industry. And so the challenges and the opportunities that exist from a training perspective, from a retention perspective, are more unique than perhaps what we've experienced in the past. So Matt, I'm going to start with you. I'm going to give you home field advantage from the JW Marriott. You run a big hotel, more than 700 rooms. Staffing challenges are perhaps even more significant for you. Given some of the dynamics I just described, talk a little bit about you and your team's strategy in terms of how you're attracting, developing, and retaining talent.
No, thank you, Tony. And you're absolutely right. You know, pre-pandemic, we had a very different approach to post-pandemic. As part of a bigger strategy with Marriott, we really looked at workforce effectiveness and how we were really looking at how we got business done at our hotels. And we started with our leadership team, with our managers and our leaders, and really kind of asking, what are the day-to-day responsibilities that they have, and how do we right-size some of those expectations? When I started in the industry, long hours were part of the norm, right? You got there before the boss, you left after the boss, and that's how you got things done. And, we really had to kind of take a look at how do we change that? And that really had to start with the general manager and the executive committee, and change starts at the top, and how we kind of filter that down. So really looking at the day-to-day responsibilities of our leaders and the tasks that they're asked to accomplish, and how do we get that done? You've heard the adage, this meeting could have been an email. And in some cases, that was actually the case. There was a lot of things that we did just because that's the way we've always done it. So how do we take better advantage of technology? How do we take better advantage of, just how we get things done to be able to be a little bit more flexible? So our goal with our operations managers, for example, think front office, housekeeping, food and beverage, we gave them the option of working either 4 10-hour days or 5 8-hour days. And we have a mix of both. For some people, 5 8-hour days work better because that allowed them to have better family coverage or childcare or school responsibilities. So 5 days worked better for them. For those that had 4 days, they were able to have 3 days off. So that worked for them. For our administrative, think HR, finance, sales, they had the option to work remote when possible. So a little bit more balanced there. And again, was based on what they needed. With our hourly ladies and gentlemen, what we did was to be a little bit more flexible. One, in scheduling, and also in utilizing part-time. Full-time was always the key, and you had to be flexible. You had to work AMs, you had to work PMs. Well, that wasn't necessarily going to work as we tried to get people to come back to the industry. So what we did was, if it worked better for you to work later in the afternoon, because that allowed you to take care of your home life and your situation, we had a place for you. If you needed to work part-time because you wanted to get back into the Indian industry and that got your foot back in the door, we had a place for you. So being a lot more flexible certainly allowed us to attract a lot more people, and the results have been good. Not only is applicant flow up and we're getting more candidates, applying for positions, but we've really been able to have a better balance with our ladies and gentlemen. So with our managers, I've heard some great stories, for those that now have a little bit more time away from work and not the long hours that they had before. One told me they've been able to, take up the viola again. Or, now they're able to start on renovations, and YouTube is an amazing place to learn how to do that. And now they have the time to do that. Or take an improv class. So it's been really, really beneficial and, truly, I think, impactful on how we approach staffing and really kind of, how we manage our hotels.
I think your point on workforce innovation in particular has a lot of relevance for this group. I spent a little time with Marty Walsh, the Secretary of Labor, and he talked about this steady stream of retail CEOs that came to see him. And he said all of them talked about the bus stop schedule.
Yeah.
And I said, what does that mean? And he said, we have lots of applicants. They want to work full time, but they said, I'm going to put my kid on the bus. I'm going to make sure my kid gets off the bus. I'm happy to come in and work for a few hours, leave, and come back. That's more typical in a retail environment, less typical for our environment. But I think it'll be critical for us to continue to be willing to experiment with that sort of innovation.
It has to be different. We were so tied to housekeepers start at 8, end at 4, and that's just the way it is. And it's not. We have a lot more people that say, I need to be able to be here afterwards, or I need to be able to be home afterwards. And we have to be able to accommodate that.
So Yvette, I want to pivot a little bit. You've had a rich and diverse career across multiple brands. I'm sure we'll get you back eventually. It is a complex, it's a 24-hour-a-day business. I want to talk a little bit about mental and physical well-being. Across many business sectors, it's an increasingly important topic. It's a topic that was not necessarily spoken about as much as it should have been. It is an acutely challenging set of circumstances for our ladies and gentlemen, for yours, because of the nature of our business. In your hotel, in your company, how do you think about ensuring that we're putting enough deliberate attention around well-being?
Thanks for the question, Tony. I will say you're absolutely right. Before COVID, no one spoke about mental health. Right. We just assumed people knew what they needed to do and they would take care of themselves. But it was incredibly impactful to see our employees opening up about what they needed. And specifically, during the pandemic, I was in Nevis. I spent 3 years in Nevis, and I just came back in December. We always have had at Four Seasons an employee assistance program. So if you needed personal assistance, you picked up the phone, you called whatever counselor you needed, you spoke to them about whatever your need was. What we noted was during COVID, it needed to be more than that. So when I was in Nevis, I specifically went to our nurse, because we have a nurse on team, and said, what do we need to do for our team? Because I know they're silently suffering, and we need to make sure we can provide what they needed. So she recommended that we use one of the psychologists in the community, someone they knew, they trusted, and they could get access to. So we actually retained the psychologist for the two full years, and we told our employees, you can go and see her whenever you want to. She can come on property, you can do it after work, you can do it before work, but you have full access. The thing that made the difference was, and I only found this out months later, was we always had meetings with our team, right? We would strategize what we needed to do. One day I had a meeting with our leadership team, and it was just about, how are you doing? I told them, put your pens down. This is only about how you're doing. Where can we help? And when no one answered, I said, I'm having a rough time. I'm really suffering from the fact that I haven't seen my sons in over a year. I'm in Nevis, my family's in the US. The borders are closed. We're struggling to just simply stay sane. And for me, I started doing meditation and yoga. I adopted a puppy, thank God. So the moment I shared, then someone else raised their hand, and someone else raised their hand. It was only months after that conversation that one of my executive committee team said, that broke the ice. A lot of the employees then started saying, if Ms. Yvette can say that she's suffering, I can say too. So I think what's really important is that we need to open up as well. Because if we are the stalwarts and everything is fine, then our employees feel that they have to be the same when they're not. And so providing the resources for certain, sharing authentically what you're going through, being there for them, and giving them permission to take care of themselves. We also put in place mental wellness days, days that they got to take off just to do whatever they wanted to do for themselves with full pay. So those are the kind of things that we're looking at, and anything else beyond that. Bringing individuals on team to do yoga lessons, soundboards, meditation, all that stuff, those are things that are part of it as well. But also making sure that they know that they have permission to not be okay and to say that they're not okay.
It's great, thank you. I have a follow-up question. It's interesting how the approach has evolved. We used to think about wellness through the context of physical wellness. Mm-hmm. Now, as you point out, long overdue, a much more concentrated focus on mental wellness. One of the things we've been focused on is on financial fluency. Mm-hmm. You think about many of our frontline associates, things we might take for granted. How to set up a bank account. How does compounding work? Why is the 401k a compelling investment? And really having to kind of lay out the basic elements of financial well-being. Is that a portion of what you're doing at Four Seasons?
One of the things that we did just before I left was we had a wellness fair. And you would think a wellness fair is only about your well-being. Right. But we brought in financial individuals to teach them those things, right? Or to make sure they knew what the investments were available to them and how to save, because clearly no one expected the world to stop and to no longer have a regular paycheck. So now making sure that they saved appropriately, hopefully we'll never have this again. But it doesn't hurt to be able to know what we learn from this can move forward with the employees and make them better financial stewards personally, as well as understanding that we have resources available that they can take advantage of. So definitely part of what we're doing.
Thank you. So Bernd, I want to go to you. For as long as all of us have been in the industry, one of the most important metrics has always been turnover, right? It's in every report, we track it closely. Our focus now has had to shift by necessity. We lost a bunch of our folks, in some cases furloughed our folks, brought some back, were unsuccessful in bringing some back. And as I mentioned, at least our experience has been while applicant flow is up, many of them have little or no experience in hospitality. So this notion of associate retention has taken on a very different character. I have a daughter here in college, and at one point after one of our HR meetings, I called her, I said, what's ghosting? Right? And the reason I ask is, what I was hearing from our HR teams was someone would come in, they'd apply, they'd look great, they'd come in, they'd impress the team, we'd make them an offer, we'd say, you'll start Monday, and we'd never hear from them again. And so she explained to me ghosting. But I would love to know, you've been in the industry for a long time, how you used to think about retention and turnover, and in a post-pandemic world, whether you think about it a little different.
Thanks, Tony. So I have the great privilege to work for a company that is mission-driven. And we have a strong compass, do all the good you can and be a platform for change. So a lot of people that come and want to join the organization, they feel passionate about that. They can apply their personal passion and align them with their professional goals. Now, that's the initial indicator in terms of how you can shape a growing company. I think you hit it on the nail. We have a lot of people that have never worked or studied in the industry, not like here or not like the people that we used to know. Mm-hmm. So we have taken a tremendous commitment in the training and in the technology involved in really getting those people on track and have a clear path for them to see what the progression can look like. I think one mistake that many operators always make is you're a great hourly employee, you're performing so well, we just put you in a leadership position and then we hope you go best, just off you go. And they are not successful necessarily. So to create a really sustainable platform where there's continuous investment and growth for the individual is key. A second piece to that is, I work for One Hotels, there's a lot of greenery, there's nature everywhere, so when you walk into a building, it's filled with plants and nature, and you feel good when you walk in. That many times doesn't translate to the heart of house. Some heart of house you see, it looks like a prison cell, and the cafeteria the same. But so we've really invested into the employee experience, and the employee experience starts when you walk in the door, and it comes from, similar to what Yvette mentioned, there are programs from well-being, from sporting classes, from accessibility to a lot of other things that we had not focused in the past, but it's a necessity now. A third piece is, and you hit on that, the whole flexibility. I actually, when we speak about work-life balance, I call it work-life blend. Mm-hmm. And if we create a work-life blend, it really gives the flexibility to people to do what they want to do. So if they have a benefit in their personal life to be professional successful and professionally to be personal successful, then it starts to work. And we create a desire of belonging. And if that means that you drop off the kids in the morning, or if you have a package waiting at home and you work from home, or if there's a yoga class you want to do and you leave at 2 and you come back after that, then there has to be an understanding and an acceptance to that. And for a long time, pre-COVID, there was not really that understanding of it or the acceptance of that. So it's a mind shift that all of us had to learn.
Well, my guess is the audience is hearing a consistent theme from all three of you. And that's just a different mindset as we try to navigate a post-pandemic world. Yvette, I thought you articulated this in a really compelling, unique way in a LinkedIn post you did not long ago. And I wrote it down because it really stood out to me. All of us have had to navigate KPIs forever. And in effect, what you said is, we're not going to use that term anymore. We might use the acronym, but the acronym is going to be different. It should now stand for keep people interested, keep people informed, keep people involved, and keep people inspired. While logical and appropriate, it is a radical departure from the way all of us learned. Talk to us a little bit about what led you to such a radically different and I think powerful approach to how we measure associate engagement.
I think that we all agree that we are an industry powered by people. And if there's nothing else that we've learned from COVID, is that we need to focus on the individuals that are delivering the service. And so we have to start with our people. So it is about the employee experience just as much as it is about the guest experience. We can't expect our employees to go out there and create memorable experiences for our guests if we're not meeting their needs first. Their need to know what's going on, their need to feel valued, they need to feel that we are knowing who they are, what they want, and meeting them where they're at, and the need to feel that we're investing in them. So for me, it was really about making sure we're communicating to our employees that they are our most important asset, and that whatever we do for them must meet them where they're at and take them where they want to go. And so that's been really the foundation of why I made that post, and it was shared by someone else, and it certainly said, okay, this really speaks to exactly what we're trying to communicate to our employees. Those engagement surveys that we do every year can no longer just be once a year. You've got to continually check in with your employees. Pulse surveys are the way to go. They can tell you, are you doing what you said you're going to do? Do I feel like I'm part of this team? We on board now, not just so that you can know the tasks that you're going to be doing in the role that you're in. We on board for belonging. So do you feel a part of the team? Do I set you up with a buddy who can make sure you have someone to sit in the cafeteria with because you're new and you still don't know anyone on the team yet? Do we make sure you're engaged in our employee commitment programs that talk about culturally what are the things we're celebrating and how would you like to contribute to the celebration that celebrates you, whether you're of gay persuasion, whether you're Black African American, whether you're Asian? How do we want to celebrate what's important to you? How do you want us to show up and recognize that you're a part of this team? So it's really, really important, and it doesn't stop today. Our employees are expecting us to continue to do that, and they're asking for it, and quite frankly, it's just the right thing to do, and it's fun.
And I think that particularly that last part of your statement, the necessity for us to be both deliberate and consistent, we can never be self-satisfied on these issues.
And the moment you make it about you, then you forget who you're serving, right? And when we encourage employees to be their authentic selves, and that's something that's a core to what we do at Four Seasons, then you've got to celebrate that, encourage it, reward it, and make sure that if you don't understand it, as leaders, you say, you know what? Forgive me, help me understand why that's an issue. Help me understand why that's important to you. Ask the questions that will know, that the employees will know that you really, truly are trying to learn and do better, rather than just simply trying to be someone who is leading the team without hearing the voices of those that you're leading.
So the nature of our business is such that as leaders, we have both the opportunity and the responsibility to create inclusive work environments. Mr. Marriott often talks about our large hotels as mini United Nations, populated with representatives from dozens and dozens of countries. That is certainly the case for your hotel in Washington. How do you think about the stewardship of inclusivity in a hotel of that size and diversity, and how impactful is it to the performance of the hotel?
Well, as you mentioned, Tony, it is a large hotel. It's 777 rooms in our nation's capital, steps from the White House. And we have ladies and gentlemen from all over the United States. But we also have ladies and gentlemen from over 29 different countries, and we have 17 different languages that are spoken. So it's very easy for that to be polarizing or for people to be very siloed in that environment. But I'm very proud of the fact that our hotel has charter associates, people that started at that hotel 40 years ago, and they are still at that hotel. We still have ladies and gentlemen that have a long tenure with Marriott, and Marriott might be the only hotel company that they've ever been with. And I think that speaks volumes for, how we bring people together. There is a mutual respect, that there is a shared sense of values on how we interact. It's not just the business we do, but it's how we get things done. So there's a myriad of programs, both formal and informal, that we have, that we'll be able to do Housekeeping Appreciation Week or Associate Appreciation Week. And all of those are important, but it's the day-to-day interactions that I think really drive it. An example that I would share is, we focus on having regular department meetings, regardless of size of the department. And that's truly important, because department meetings are there because communication is a two-way street. Not only do we need to share information with our ladies and gentlemen about what's happening at the hotel, but it's also our opportunity to hear from them. I think, Yvette, just like you said, we need to be able to show up and be there for them. But we can't do that if we don't hear from them. We can't read their minds. So we have to create these opportunities where they feel comfortable, where they can share what's important to them. And not only are our associates our best source of job referrals, and best way to get the positions filled, but they're also our best source for innovation. And they're our best source of our how do we navigate. And certainly the last several years, we've had to navigate differently. We've had to innovate differently. So they're our best opportunity on saying, this is what our guests need, this is what I think we should do. And we've been able to adapt that. And it doesn't always have to be, anything dramatic. An example that I would share that came out from one of these meetings, I was a general manager at a Renaissance. And a Renaissance brand really focuses on the local experience. And a lot of that, as you would imagine, usually rides or resides with the front of the house associates, right? The desk, the concierge, and our housekeepers said, why should they be the only ones that, you know, share what's important or local? We want to share too. And we said, great, what do you want to do? And they said, you know, we have some great ideas on, you know, things we'd like to share about our city. What would you like to share? So they left notes, and we had them printed up, and each housekeeper would leave a note for a guest and say, when you're in my city, this is what I think you should see. And whether that was a restaurant that was off the beaten path, or a tour or a sightseeing event that maybe a normal or regular tourist wouldn't see, right? If you were visiting Washington, D.C., you probably would not go to the Sunday afternoon drum circle at Malcolm X Park, or you would not go to a really great Ethiopian restaurant that is not in downtown. So getting those kind of levels of engagement would never happen if we didn't have this shared kind of sense of trust and mutual respect. So,
thank you. So I characterized inclusivity as a collective responsibility. Sustainability is another clear collective responsibility. Depending on what area of the industry you work in, there's a constituent or some group of constituents that are demanding to hear from you. What goals have you set? What tangible progress have you made against those goals? And it's across all the constituents we serve: guests, associates, owners, investors. Bernd, I want to turn to you. 1 Hotels obviously is a bright shining star in this area. It's a brand that in many ways is built on the shoulders of a powerful aspirational set of goals in the area of sustainability. Sitting in a corporate office, it's easy to set those aspirational goals. Somebody at the property level has to execute. So I'd love to hear a little bit about, in your hotel, how you pull through those aspirations and how that impacts the constituents you serve, in particular, your employees and your guests.
Wow, how much time do we have?
As much as you want.
You know, sustainability has never been a trend for us. It's really the core principle in how we operate. And that is so vastly different, and it has been even in my journey with the company. You know, Barry basically thought, there's one world, we all share it, we have to take care of it. And how do we do that? In a growing industry, in a growing footprint, so there are a lot of principles that we need to execute on every single day. So we are looking at sustainability holistically. When we look at a building, you know, all of our buildings are LEED certified. We are carbon neutral. We are trying to give materials a second life. The whole journey of repurposing and second life means that you're avoiding waste generation. Then from a procurement point of view, you know, we are looking at it from a sourcing point, from transportation, all the way from the delivery and the end execution from the hotel. So if we would source something in a region that is, you know, challenged by, you know, not right labor practices and vice versa, that is our governance that we are responsible for. We're not going to fly something in, and I'm not talking about the $5,000 gas fuel for Antarctica, but you know, we are not going to fly tomatoes in if they're not in season. So there are little tiny things that just is a paradigm shift for many people. At the hotel, we are partnering with organizations that really keep us on track and allow us to measure it so we can hold ourselves accountable to it. Our food and beverage program is zero waste altogether. So you come to our restaurant, there are no single-use items, there are no single-use plastics, but we are utilizing the entire produce all the way until the end. We have a commitment to waste diversion of 90%. That means we're trying to get items out of landfills, trying to find second life beyond recycling. We have invested into great technology in EMS, energy management systems, and building measurement systems, where we can really determine, are we using energy efficiently? Do we have opportunities to continue to reduce that? There's great data out now where we learn how guests behave in their guest rooms and what we are using as a whole. So You asked something before. There are a lot of companies now that wouldn't do business with you if you cannot showcase what you're doing to reduce carbon or what your practices are. It's just not an option. And it's great that we are finally in this world to really talk about it. But it's just a small glimpse of how we operate. I could go on for a long time on that.
Yeah, I think your point about customers is right. I mean, we look at this. There was a period in history where occasionally there would be an exception, and that would be a group customer that would ask for an addendum to a group contract on our record on sustainability. I think today the exception is to not get that request. Yvette, Matt, I think...
Absolutely. And I think
completely agree.
And in our day-to-day operations, they're looking for some of those practices, right? Where they want, no plastic water bottles. They want a joint, water station, and they don't want plastic. So that's become the norm for a lot of how we operate.
I thought it was interesting you talked about suppliers a bit. Yvette, you've got a different set of challenges. You, by definition, operating in the Caribbean, you don't necessarily have the wealth of procurement options that your colleagues here on stage have. But I know that it's a core principle for Four Seasons to be a leader in sustainability. How do you reconcile the reality of operating in an island environment with those lofty goals that you have?
You're absolutely right that we have an ERG department that reports to our CEO. This is very important to us. And so all the sustainability measures that we can put in practice, particularly on an island, is very important. We've done the legwork to find out that there's a number of ways that we can reduce what we import. There are lots of farmers on the island, and that became a very clear decision, and intentionally on my part, to go out and visit the farmers on both islands, St. Kitts and Nevis, to see what they're producing, how much they're producing, so that we can determine how much we can get from them and reduce the amount that we were bringing in to support the rest of the operation. It's also making sure that we take a look around at how we're using energy. We had energy audits done. We have recommendations to things that we can change in order to reduce the amount of energy that we waste. Food waste has been something that we focused on, making sure that we are looking at reducing and eliminating single-use plastics. So there was a time when we would have never gone with the refillable amenities in bathrooms. But now, those are things that are commonplace for us, right? Asking guests to participate in our program for how often we wash your linen and Terry's, all of those things are part and parcel, and many of our guests have just been waiting for us to do that. So it is something that we are committed to. We know we have to leave the earth better for our kids, and quite frankly, we're not doing the best job right now. And every single moment that we focus on this will be better, not only for us as a company, but also for the globe in general.
Thank you. I'm glad you brought up power. Matt, your hotel just received a pretty extraordinary reward for excellence in energy management.
Yeah.
Made more challenging by the age of your hotel. When that hotel was constructed, I'm not sure the same lens that guides the development of one hotels was necessarily top of mind. Talk a little bit about not only practically what you did to achieve that recognition, but how you embedded in the DNA of your ladies and gentlemen.
Yes, thank you. So sustainability is obviously table stakes now, right? May not have been 40 years ago, but certainly how we practice now, not only because of the economic impact, but certainly the environmental. So we recently received our Energy Star certification last year, and the Energy Star is, you meet standards set by the EPA for energy use and reducing your greenhouse gas emissions. So receiving an Energy Star certification was huge, but even more so, receiving our Gold LEED certification last year as well, on the heels of the Energy Star certification, was great. Again, a 40-year-old building, and that doesn't happen overnight. So many of what has been discussed has been implemented over the course of the last several years. So energy management systems, how do we conserve water, how do we upgrade heating and cooling units so that we're being more energy efficient, is certainly part of it. but also just good common practices, right? Just like we would implement at your home. How do you kind of make sure that if you're not using it, you turn it off, or that it's monitored, and it's kind of part of how we operate, that we're not heating and cooling spaces that are not in use? How do we make sure that we don't have single-use plastics and other items in place? Most recently, to help support some of these efforts, we are in the process of installing and activating our solar panel at the roof of the hotel. Once that is activated, hopefully by the end of this month, that solar panel will produce 20% of the electricity for the hotel. So as part of our ongoing commitment, what the hotel has been able to do on an annual basis is save over 250 metric tons of carbon gas emissions. To put that into context, that's about 1,500 acres of forest on an annual basis that we've been able to do. And that certainly doesn't happen overnight, right? And it's something that we've really had to kind of change through various practices. So very, very proud of the efforts we've had, and really looking forward to the next step in sustainability.
Well, let's pivot to the guest. One of the things that's fascinating to me, if you looked at spending patterns prior to the pandemic, particularly for the next generation traveler, they were much more focused on spending their hard-earned dollars on experiences rather than in the acquisition of hard goods. The pandemic, it appears, when you look at the data, acted as an accelerant for that shift across multiple generations. And so this is a question for each of you, but as you think about this wealth of generations that you have available to fill your hotels, you need to simultaneously not forget about the older guest who continues to travel and has significant wealth, but you've got younger, next generation travelers who are spending disproportionate shares of their disposable income in pursuit of those experiences. So when you think about the physical offerings of your hotels, when you think about how you program spas and fitness and food and beverage, how do you think about meeting those quickly evolving needs of your guests? Yvette, I'll start with you.
As a regional vice president, I oversee multiple properties, and I can tell you that each of those properties have guests who have different needs and express them very, very vocally. So the one thing about our customers is that they tell us what they expect to see, whether it be in our ESG, whether it be in what we offer in terms of amenities, whether it be in terms of diversity of our staff and diversity of our offerings. So for us, it's constantly listening to what our customers are saying and making sure that we are meeting them with what they're asking for. Changing amenities is something that we do absolutely at a drop of a hat. Where people eat and what they eat, wanting to make sure that they can come in and have a vegan meal, or come in and have a pescatarian meal, or feed their kids who are allergic to things. Those are things that we listen to so that when they visit the property, they understand that we recognize that this is important to them. We have a great platform called Golden that allows us to collect lots of information from our guests. That information is used as fuel to share with our team and to share with our hotels across the globe, so that when you travel from one property to the next, you don't have to tell us that you're allergic to this, or your preference is to have foam pillow instead of feather on the bed, or you need this set up in your mini bar. These are things that we take the responsibility of gathering the information and sharing it with our team, because service looks different to everyone now. And our team has got to be trained and has been trained to recognize that what Yvette needs, what Scott needs, what this family needs, what this business travelers need, while they're all in-house at the same time, absolutely needs to be addressed. And so listening keenly, training them to be empowered to respond to the guest needs, recognizing if this is a celebration, a one-time visit, a unique opportunity, to take advantage of that. Those are the things that make sure that our employees feel part of the equation. There was a guest that came to visit us, and he was there celebrating his 25th anniversary, and the employees found out. And so he comes to me and he shows me this video of them performing and singing to he and his wife, just to make sure they felt the love. Those are the kind of things that you can't script for. Employees need to feel that they're given the bandwidth and the runway to be themselves, to meet the guest, to engage with them and to absolutely deliver on what they're expecting. And that looks different for everyone. So our role as leaders is to absolutely give them the ability to do that. And being your authentic self means that. It's not changing and putting on cloaks when you get in. So making sure that they feel good about where they're at, they feel valued, and they feel that they can contribute and make a difference. That's something that permeates what you see at every Four Seasons across the brand.
Bernd?
I mean, you hit a lot of those marks. I read a very interesting article the other day where they talk about senior millennials. I didn't even know that that's a term. But apparently the senior millennials, they are becoming truly the financial powerhouse now, where they are starting and then taking over some of the boomer money. And senior millennials grew up in a world of constant technology. And they are approaching what they want very differently. They want what they want, the way they want it, and they want it instantly. And to really capture that, sometimes our industry is a little bit slow to adapt to that. And it's great to see that there's ongoing investment into technology and into understanding what that looks like. It's not so much about sending out a brochure or emails as a blanket, and people have to decipher what they would like and select through it. You mentioned you have Gold, and there are different platforms out there now where we can truly recognize what are some patterns of behavior of those guests that stay with us, and how can we deliberately market to them based on their spending and how they're behaving. There's another interesting wave that I'm seeing is people used to save up for the summer vacation and for the winter vacation. That's out the house. It's people going to travel whenever they want. There's no seasonality anymore. There are shorter trips. They're more frequent trips, and it's all experience driven. To Tony's point, they would like to not just have a blanket experience in the restaurant and go to the museum with as their parents did. They want to have something that they don't know. They want something off the beaten path. And if we can create them and connect them with that, then it's a success. It's the skill of accessibility of what others don't have. That's kind of the trend out there I'm seeing.
Matt?
I think a lot of great points were covered, but I think that one piece I can add is we have lots of data. I think all of our organizations probably collect more data than we can know what to do with, but it's the execution of that data and being able to acknowledge the preferences and being able to deliver on that is key. And I'll use my hotel as an example. It's a large, very busy, and we do a lot of conventions. That's what we were built for. But being able to switch gears seamlessly and being able to address that blended travel, right? Where it's business, now I'm tacking on leisure, and how do we know how to differentiate between the two? How do we be expeditious and make sure that we give them the conference and content that they need for that, but still be good ambassadors for the city that we're in? And being able to do that in a personalized manner, right? That we can acknowledge that this is what you want and when you want it. And all of those other data points is I think, the challenge. And I think, Bernd, you hit it very well. You hit it on the head where you said, you want to be able to give them an experience. I'll put it in another way. You want to give them a story to tell. So when they leave us, you want to be able to make sure that they had such a great stay that they're going to be able to tell that story. And hopefully it's a positive one, right? So that's what we really are challenged with trying to do.
And we want our employees to showcase their home. That's on the island of Nevis. We wanted our employees to be able to say, if you're willing, I'll take you to my village and I'll show you exactly what we do when we're celebrating something. And that's something that you can't script that. The employees have to feel trust that we have in them and be empowered to do things like that, because this is their island, this is something that they're proud of, and quite frankly, we believe that the resort belongs to the island, it belongs to them, and we need to make sure that they always feel that whatever we're doing is creating a space where forever on, Four Seasons just continues to build and be a part of the community.
Well, I'm going to wrap with one question for each of you, because I think we may have a couple minutes for a few questions from the audience. First of all, I want to say thank you. It is invaluable to get insights from general managers. We can sit in offices and hypothesize about what's going on in the market. Nobody has better real-time insights and visibility into how our employees and how our guests think about travel. So thank you. if the organizers agree at the next best ever HEC, they may invite some other general managers to come talk. Perhaps we've done such a good job that a decade from now they'll invite us back. If they do, a decade from now, what will we be talking about? What will be the innovations and the trends and the changes in the way travelers travel and the way we as hoteliers respond to them? Matt, I'll start with you.
I'll take the easy answer and say technology continues to evolve, right? And we already have mobile everything, right? Mobile check-in, mobile chat, mobile dining. Mobile is there. But I think how we respond to that mobile in the future is really going to be key. AI, everybody talks about it, and it's utilized in a lot of different industries, but I see us with a greater adaptation of AI in being able to facilitate those kind of interactions in the future. So it'll never replace our human content, but being able to respond to everything mobile when they want it, how quickly they want it, and in a personalized manner, I see AI playing a greater role in how we operate.
I'm delighted to hear your last comment. At our headquarters, we hosted 30 MIT MBA students about a month ago. And we did a Q&A, and at the end of the Q&A, one of the students said, with all of this new AI, isn't it fabulous? Can't you imagine a day when you'll have a hotel with no employees? I said, God, I hope not, right? I mean, we are in the service business, but I think your comment is spot on.
It'll
Bernd?
never replace the interaction, but it certainly will enhance and support it.
Well, and we've talked about it. My hope is what technology does principally is creates capacity. It improves our efficiency in a way where our frontline employees now have more capacity to engage in a really personal way. Bernd?
Technology is one of them. I would say predicting trend 10 years out is it's tough. You know, it's
10 weeks is tough.
10 weeks is tough. We've seen the landscape right now, and you know, if I would say like what is on the horizon in the next 3 or so years, technology is going to continue to be in the forefront. The traveler, you know, our workforce is Gen Z. The people paying is millennials. So there's a very different relationship with technology and how they operate. What we have also seen out of COVID is that people travel, but they also have a work-life blend. They travel to a destination, they might work a day, they might take an excursion for something else, and they travel back. So the pattern on how you cater to those guests has changed. And the whole thing about I'm doing a family trip with kids, I'm doing a business trip separately, all of that is out the window as well. It's an all-encompassed experience, and it is still continuing to be experience-driven, but with the use of technology.
I couldn't agree more. We talked about this on our earnings call. When we look at the pace of recovery post-pandemic, one of the metrics we look at is recovery by day of the week. Sunday and Thursday are the days of the week that have recovered most quickly, which underscores exactly your point, that this idea of blended trip purpose, I think, will endure well beyond the end of the pandemic. Yvette, I'll give you the final word.
Employee experience. I think we will always be in a need for finding talent. And I think we will continually have to challenge ourselves as leaders to look at bringing in more diverse talent. Unfortunately, we're not at the place where we have the diversity and in the leadership roles that we would want to, but our responsibility is to get there and to make sure we open the doors to individuals who are not already in the room and give them a space so that we can continue to see the creativity. We continue to draw in additional individuals, because when you see yourself at a certain position, you see someone that looks like you, clearly it's easier for you to say, I can be that. And so our responsibility as leaders is really truly to make sure that we're attracting the most talented, diverse talent and making sure that they feel included and that they belong. And certainly as leaders as well, to commit our time to things that foster that. I know for me, being involved in women in leadership and being a part of the Castell Project, which focuses on bringing female leaders at senior levels of our industry, is very important, as well as being on the advisory board of the Arnie Sorensen School of Hospitality at Howard University, where the focus is bringing in additional talented individuals who are from diverse and underserved backgrounds that have not been represented as much as they need to be in our industry. So I think that will continue to be one of the areas that is really, really important to us.
Well said. So it looks like we have a couple minutes. Do we have any questions from the audience? Yeah, right here. Do we have some microphones? Perfect. I think we have one right here in the middle.
First of all, thank you for your openness and sharing all the knowledge. It's been great. As far as what you talked about, especially sustainability and the leadership of the future, I don't know if you guys have had a chance to stay here at Statler Hotel, and I was wondering if you have, what feedback could you give us as a college of what we need to improve or what we're doing well as far as education, sustainability in the future?
So Matt, I might let you off the hook since we flew up this morning, but I think both of you stayed at Statler last night, didn't you?
Yeah. So your
Is
question.
Arthur here? He should cover his ears. All right, brace yourself, Arthur. You got some luxury operators here. Yvette, go ahead, please.
You know, I had the pleasure of arriving with Sebastian, and the ride from the airport with him was phenomenal. Such rich conversation.
And then arriving and having someone waiting for me to escort me to the desk, and they were waiting and ready to check me in.
I think it was a wonderful arrival experience.
It's being able to do that for every customer that comes in, right? The level is how consistent can you be in making individuals feel welcome, that you are waiting for them, and that you are prepared to make sure that their stay is exactly what they expect. My entire program was waiting for me, all the things that I needed, and then I got a text from Sydney saying, hey, here's where I am. If you need anything, please reach out to me. So for me, it was exactly what I needed. So for me, keep doing that and keep doing it consistently and making sure that it is something that is consistent across
The experience for your guests when they arrive.
Great. What were your impressions?
You know, I drove in from New York, so my arrival was a bit different, but it was great nonetheless. I arrived last night. I think Sydney has been great in terms of guiding me through the entire journey. Yesterday evening, I used some of your facilities, and including this morning. I think everybody I interacted with, that's the biggest takeaway I probably have to give you that answer, has been just tremendous and very forthcoming. They've been very personal, and and it started with valet yesterday. So kudos on your team. Well done.
And I was on campus about a month ago and met with a number of faculty across the university. Very significant focus on sustainability at the university level. Mm-hmm. Any observations based on your expertise at One Hotels in terms of quick wins as Arthur thinks about running the Statler?
Mm-hmm. So quick wins to what I noticed, for example, we have the reuse bottles. It's sometimes tough when I used the gym this morning, and I think you have the one-time, the single-use item. If you would offer those components as part of your arrival, you can actually encourage people to refill. And we have started that process where we don't offer anything single anymore. If you would like to have, we work with a different company, but it's basically a refillable water bottle, and it creates a story. And the story is something that your team members can also tell and convey. Another piece is not having any. I think I recognized you have the refillable pieces, the soap and so on in the shower. I think that is a very important trend to continue to move forward. You offer a lot of great things on the amenity tray. What we actually have done is we don't offer all of them at any given time. Many times those items get wet, many times those get tossed away. So there's just a reduction in that waste if you don't necessarily need it. So just like a small number of recommendations.
Thank you.
I would also say have a card that
encourages your guests not to need their linen changed each day, to reuse the towels that they have so that you can also take advantage of saving on water and saving on processing those items regularly.
I saw you taking notes, so I'm going to say one more thing as well. I don't know if I have it now, but the key packets. You know what we realized? That the amount of key packets that we go through, it's absolutely insane. Thousands of those key packets, and all you do is you write the room number on there, and then most guests just toss it away, and if you're lucky, you get the key back or not. So we actually started to give you the key It's a wooden key. It's very one.
Exactly.
And but we text you the room number, and there's no more sleeve to it. And that has avoided a lot of just paper waste throughout the process.
And the wooden key, I think, is a great thing. We use that at our hotels as well.
Great. Right in front here.
Hi, and thank you so much for sharing your thoughts with us. I'm Carrie Friedman. I head HR at Jefferies, the investment bank. So this is highly applicable to my work. I'm also a graduate of the hotel school, and I will say in 4 years, I never sat in the front row. I want to thank my beautiful wife, Tiffany, for reserving this highly sought-after seat for me. It's great. So, Bernd, you talked a lot about the employee experience, and Yvette, you gave examples of things that you're doing for your employees, mental health counselors, wellness counselors, financial help. But what else are employees asking for in terms of how do they advance their career as a retention vehicle? What else are you offering them to see them kind of continue to move out?
Great question. One of the important parts of being with Four Seasons is task forcing. So an individual who does not necessarily want to leave Nevis is allowed to go to another property, wherever it is in the world, and work with them for 3 months, 2 weeks. We allow them to go out and help with openings so that they can gain the experience that they need. In some instances, individuals then decide to transfer. So transferring is a big thing within the company, promoting from within. But I know for a lot of the employees in Nevis, they don't want to leave their home, but they want to grow. And so I remember last year we sent our director of finance, our assistant director of finance, who wants to become a director, to Baltimore for 3 months so she could work with that team and continue to advance her skills and be prepared for the next journey so that she can at one stage be promoted to the director of finance. It is also having a developmental plan. Everyone who wants to grow is encouraged to make a developmental plan with the things that they want to learn and with the things that we see that they need to learn along the way. And then we partner them, we give them access to training online, access to training in person. Training is a big part of what we do at Four Seasons. There's a monthly training calendar letting them know what's available. And if there are classes that are not available that is a need, then we create those classes. And we can bring people in from other Four Seasons, or we can bring outsiders in to facilitate those trainings.
Great. Well, I think we're getting the hook. But I want to thank our panelists. As I said at the outset, to hear from leaders in the field that are navigating a post-pandemic world, a complex employment environment, evolving guest needs, evolving almost as fast as we can watch. It is invaluable to hear your insights. So thank you for making the trip. Thank you for your support of the school. And please join me in thanking our panelists. Thank you.